Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel, and we got some online tourney results to look at here. Before we get into the LAIC content, I thought kind of doing one last little online tourney look at video here would probably be a pretty good transition video to head into with the LAIC content. Of course, LAIC is this weekend. It is the first major tournament that is going to have Paradox Rift legal, so I'm very excited to see what decks see play and what people end up bringing to the table. And I thought a good way to kind of look at it is by looking at the online tourney results once again here to kind of see where the meta is right now in week number 2 of the Paradox Rift format. We have 7 tournaments we're going to look at, including one of them that was a best-of-3 regional style tournament that was like over 12 hours long or something. So that's going to be a big one we're going to take a look at. But yeah, we have 7 online tournaments to look at with over 100 players. We're going to see what decks are winning and what decks are doing well right now as we head into the LAC content, which I'll be posting very soon here on the second channel. I know a lot of people have been asking me what my, top picks are for LAIC. What do I think the best decks in the meta are? And that's what we're going to kind of hopefully get some info out of here with this video. Also, if y'all are new here to the second channel and haven't subscribed down below, it'd be appreciated if you subscribe. We're actually on the road to 10,000 subscribers here. So if you haven't yet subbed to the second channel, and you enjoy the content I post here, make sure to subscribe. And if you enjoy the video, go on and leave a like if it would also be appreciated. But yeah, let's look at some online results. Starting off with the Deck Out Monday tournament here, and the winning deck was Gardy. Now, notice this Gardy list is interesting. But yeah, Gardevoir has been very much considered to be dead with the set with Iron Hands, but Gardy is actually proving to still be a very powerful deck, even with Iron Hands. Now, this build is relying heavily on the Screamtail Avery engine with Luxurious Cape. Luxurious Cape does allow Screamtail to do more damage. It does 20 more damage for each damage counter on it to one of your opponent's Pokemon. The triple Avery is also pretty nasty. Avery's just really good right now in general in a lot of matchups, but also just really good with Screamtail, because your opponent needs to keep Manaphy in play, but then they have to get rid of other cards that are important. So it's a very crippling card for this deck to have access to, because you're able to Avery Screamtail, which can be dirty. And if they get rid of the Manaphy before you bench Screamtail, it can even be more deadlier. Now, notice this build here does not play any Battle VIP pass. That's kind of the main story here with this new build of Gardy, is it's a Battle VIP-less build. It's actually not playing it, which is kind of odd, right? A lot of people are like, oh, Battle VIP is best card in Gardy, and this build is not playing it. Now, as you can see, it does play the Mirage Step Curlia, which I guess kind of makes up for it. The idea is, I guess you only need like 2 rolls in your first turn of the game, because you can just use Curlia's Mirage Step and set up your board with the Mirage Step Curlia, and that's how you get it done. So that's kind of the idea behind this deck. But it's interesting to not see Gardy play VIP, and we'll have to see if this Gardy VIP-less deck is still good, because in second place, we have yet another Gardevoir deck, and once again, similar to the build we just looked at with the no Battle VIPs, the Screamtail, the triple Avery, and the Luxurious Cape. So this looks like it could be the new way to play Gardevoir going forward. Maybe. We got a Lost Tina in top 4. I mean, Lost Tina is just basically just your average, run-of-the-mill, pretty good deck right now in the format. It does better in online tourneys than it might do in regionals, so we'll have to see if it does well at LAIC, because Giratina is definitely an online tourneys pet deck, in my opinion, but I'm not sure this deck is, as good as outside of the online tourney scene, but only time will tell. We do have a Lugia's Iron Hands deck here, also in top 4. Now, I think Lugia is actually in a pretty good spot right now in our format, and I think it's an underappreciated deck. I think Lugia is still good. I think a lot of people are just sleeping on it, or just not playing it enough to really get a gauge of how you actually play the deck into certain matchups, like Roaring Moon and Chempow and stuff. But I think Lugia Iron Hands is actually a pretty solid deck. Iron Hands with Lugia is a very strong combo. You do have to play the Water Energy now in the deck because of control, because you need to make sure you can use Lumineon, which is the only thing I don't like about playing at this deck, because I originally, my build didn't play Water Energy, but yeah, you do need Water Energy, because yeah, you need to be able to be controlled. But I do really like the Lugia Iron Hands deck. I think it's actually pretty legit. I think it's an underappreciated deck, and it is something that I think a lot of people should keep their eye out on, because it does seem like a good deck that people just don't really respect. Of course, in top 8, we do have a Snorlax stall. Snorlax has been winning a lot, and it's been getting a lot of good placements in online tourneys, which is kind of scary, considering obviously not many people really enjoy playing against control decks, and Snorlax is actually a good deck right now. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, well, it's only good in best of 1, but I do think Snorlax is just actually that good of a deck at the moment, because it does seem to have the best matchups. It seems to have just a really good time into a lot of decks right now. A lot of decks aren't really built to beat Snorlax. Like, they'll tech a card like a Turo or a Water or a Minior, but they're not really built to beat Snorlax control as easily, and that's where you can capitalize on this deck's strength. And I think it's actually just in a good spot right now, especially when you have counter catchers and Ericas, and it's a pretty nasty deck for sure. So definitely expect to see Snorlax a lot more in this video. We do see a Lost Zone Charizard deck here with the Radiant Charizard here, also in top 8. This seems to be the other big way to play Lost Zone right now that we've been seeing, using the Radiant Charizard alongside the Devolution and the Counter Catcher. Yeah, Sableye Ramzard looks to still be pretty good right now in the meta, and of course Charizard is just a really strong card in general against these big EX decks that are roaming around in the format. We got a couple more Tinas kind of rounding out the top 8 here. They kind of just look like your bog standard Giratina 60s, it looks like. Yeah, just more Giratina 60s. Nothing, like, Tina doesn't really gain much with the new set other than literally just Counter Catcher, and that's it. Smart stuff outside top 8 I want to look at here. We do have some other 6 and 2s to look at that bubbled out. We do have a Charizard deck here, and it's the TM Evolution Charizard deck. Now, this is kind of the best way to play Charizard right now, in my opinion, or maybe the way that everyone's playing is, of course, this TM Evo build, which basically relies heavily on that turn 1 evolution with Arven to put Charmeleons into play, and then you can go Charizard. It doesn't rely on Rare Candy. It's a different way to play the deck compared to what we've seen before, and it does look to be good. My one concern with this deck is the Bibarels. Now, I think Bibarels are obviously a very strong card, but I don't know if Charizard is good with Bibarel. My issue with Charizard Bibarel is that Bibarel only sees you a certain amount of cards every turn, whereas the Pidgeot build lets you get any card you want out of your deck. And after playing the Arvenzar deck for a little bit this weekend, I'm kind of saying that, man, I think Pidgeot is better than Bibarel. But we are seeing this Bibarel Arvenzar deck do pretty good still, and it seems to be the most popular way to play the deck right now. But we have another Charizard deck I wanted to look at here. And it is Arvenzard. Now, I think Arvenzard is definitely in an interesting spot in this format because I don't think it's like particularly bad or anything. I think it's actually still a pretty solid play for any tournament. This deck still kind of does everything it needs to do. It doesn't really gain anything bad. I mean, maybe its Champao matchup is still a little sketchy, and other than that, I think this deck is still pretty solid. I mean, Pidgeot is still just a very good card. A lot of the time, I would rather use Pidgeot over using the Bibarel. And the nice thing with Pidgeot, too, is with Path being non-existent in our format right now, other than, like, maybe Miraidon, you know, Pidgeot's a pretty good card right now. It can't really be stopped as easily, and I'm a huge fan of Arvenzard. After playing this weekend, I think that this deck definitely should be looked at more in our format, because I think it is still that good in my opinion. It's still a pretty good deck. I want to look at the Arc deck here real quick. We see Braden Elford with an Arc pile. Pretty sure it's Braden Elford, but yeah, this is an Arc deck that's basically just kind of tech for the matchups. We got the Minior for control. Shaman, obviously good against Roy Moon and Charizard. Got the Poppy in the deck. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty sure this is Braden Elford. Could be wrong though, but I think that's Braden Elford. Next tournament we got to look at is the Pumpkin Amy Weekly. We do see the winning deck once again being Gardevoir. So yeah, Gardevoir is making a huge comeback in our format right now. This is now 2 tournaments we have looked at in this video where Gardy has won. And it is another Screamtail build. And this one does play Battle VIP Pass and only 1 Avery, but still, Gardy with Screamtail seems to just kind of be all the rage right now. And that's kind of the important thing to note. And history repeats itself because in second place, there's another Gardevoir deck. But this one is actually the Battle VIP list build with the Luxurscape Screamtail engine. So, yeah, 2 back-to-back tournaments here we've looked at where Gardy was both the second and the first place deck. That's pretty crazy, dude. Yeah, Gardy is pretty good right now, it looks like. We do see a very interesting Kyogre Lost Zone deck here in top 4. It's a build using Groudon with Kyogre. So there's no Dragonite, no Zamazenta. The Groudon is cool. It does do 60 damage, and you discard any amount of fire energy from all your Pokemon, doing 60 for each one discarded. So you can use that against, like, Iron Hands and stuff. Is Groudon the best attacker against Iron Hands? I'm not sure, because you do have to discard the energy and get it back. I do kind of like the idea of this deck, because you are using both Kyogre and Groudon in succession, which is actually a kind of a cool way to play this deck, actually. Because, yeah, it's Kyogre Groudon, bro. What's not to love? It is a really spicy idea, so who knows? Maybe this is something to look at, because having both Kyogre and Groudon on the same deck is kind of cool. But I don't know. Is Groudon the best way to beat Iron Hands? Maybe. I don't know. But Kyogre, actually, I think if somebody finds a good way to play Kyogre right now, I think Kyogre is actually still good. I mean, with how many, 2-prize decks are right now, not many of them use Mana Feat. Kyogre can really have a feast right now, in my opinion. I think Kyogre is still pretty good and stuff. We do have another Bibarel TM Evozard here in top 4. Again, I'm not super sold in this deck just yet, but I do think this deck is still good. It's got legs. It's doing pretty well in the online tourneys. It seems to be the most popular way to play Charizard right now, so we'll have to see if this deck does well at LAIC. We see a Fusion Mew deck here in top 8. Mew's definitely kind of still the underdog deck right now in the meta. It's still like kind of squeaking in wins here and there. Seems Fusion build is the best way to play it, especially when you can donk these 2 prizers with the meta we're in. This build does have a lot of supporters, though. It's playing Sparkle, Boss, Judge, Avery, Turo, and Iono. So that's a lot. I mean, Turo makes sense. Turo definitely seems like a good one-up to play. It also plays 2 Pokemon catchers, so little greedy there. We do see a Roaring Moon in top 8. First Roaring Moon in this video so far, and it looks like it is just another turbo heavy build. Not playing any water energy shenanigans, which I'm a fan of. I think water energy Roaring Moon is garbage, and that's just coming from somebody who has lost to the deck because I do not respect the Greninja at all and not much mana fee. But I really do think Roaring Moon is definitely still in the experimental phase. We haven't really figured out the exact 60 yet. We haven't figured out the optimal way to play it, and I'm sure maybe after LAIC we're going to see that happen, but we're going to probably still continue to see the Roaring Moon do well in these online tourneys. We got a couple more Lost Zone decks here in top 8. We have a pretty standard Turbo Kyogre deck here in top 8, also from the past format. And then the next deck we have to look at here is another Lost Zone deck, and it looks like we have a Roaring Moon Lost Zone deck. Now, this is pretty spicy. It does have Avery in the deck, which I've heard some murmurings about playing Avery in Lost Box right now, because Avery with like Greninja and Sableye can be pretty deadly. Kind of the same theory applies to like when you're playing Screamtail, because when you play Avery against decks that have Manaphy Jirachi, they have to keep the Manaphy and Jirachi. They can't get rid of anything else, and that can be pretty deadly. And the Roaring Moon is interesting in Lost Box. Not hard to build up. It's like playing Dragonite, basically. Just put Dark on and then accelerate the Dark attach from your deck with Mirage Gate. Build up a Roaring Moon in 1 turn. The benefit of Roaring Moon is it can KO anything in the active spot. So you just like immediately get an instant knockout type effect with the Roaring Moon. So it makes sense that Roaring Moon Lost Box could be seeing some play. We'll have to see how this deck does. I mean, I've seen some murmurings of this deck, and maybe Roaring Moon Lost Box is legit. I guess, again, we'll have to see on that. The next tournament to look at here is the Redacted Paradox #2 tournament, and look at that. The 3rd tournament in a row we've looked at where Gardy has won, and it is once again the Gardy Screamtail Battle VIP-less build. Once again, playing the Luxurious Cape. Actually, no, it is playing VIP. I lied. I lied. I take it back. It plays VIP. I did not see the VIP for a sec. I just immediately assumed it wasn't, but no, it's a VIP deck. But yeah, no, it is another Screamtail Gardy Avery deck. And yeah, wow, Gardy's doing good, man. Gardy is positioned pretty well. I mean, dude, literally 3 tournaments in a row it's won. Question is, did it get 2nd place? That's going to be the moment of truth. It did not. Actually, what got 2nd place is a Zoroark V-Star deck. Looks like it's pretty similar to the Zoroark V-Star deck we saw, I think it was Sacramento. I think I did a video on this deck, right? Yeah, I did a video on this Zoroark deck from Sacramento, but it is a pretty interesting archetype. I think Zoroark's actually not terrible right now. It should trade pretty well into the 2 prize decks, and the Klefkis are smart because you can obviously slow down your opponent. Big thing is you can shut off like Squawkabillies and stuff like that, which is pretty relevant. But yeah, I think Zoroark V-Star is definitely an interesting archetype right now. I think it's not like, I don't think it's bad. I think it's kind of decent. Again, it just kind of trades really well into these like other 2 prize decks. That's kind of the way I look at playing the Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, because it's literally just a big beats deck V-Star attacker. That's kind of the idea behind the deck. And I guess now you have Jirachi, so your matchup against Lost Box is fine. We got another Snorlax control deck here in top 4. Once again, Snorlax, stall, control, whatever you want to call it, is a good deck right now in our meta, and it's a deck that will probably continue to see play. I think the big thing will be is, can Snorlax stall live up to the hype in LAIC and actually have good results at LAIC, or is it mostly just going to run the online tourneys? That's the question. Another Lost Tina deck here, playing the double Roxanne and stuff. Another Zard deck to look at. And this one, once again, is the TM Evolution Charizard deck. And yeah, it does seem like, again, the popular way to play with the double Turo, the Bibarel. Yeah. I mean, if you're a Charizard enjoyer, this could be the Charizard deck for you. I do like the Vengeful Punch idea right now in Charizard, because Charizard does probably have a bit of a rougher matchup into Gardevoir, especially now with Screamtail. They have like the Screamtail and the Shine Arcana to KO you. We've got another Roaring Moon here, and this one is once again playing the Water Energy. It also plays 1/1 Darkrai. I think Darkrai is a cool idea, and Roaring Moon, obviously Darkrai's V-Star power, can be pretty helpful to have in a Roaring Moon deck, and then also, of course, you got to play the Water Energy. Again, I'm not a fan of the Water Energy in the Roaring Moon deck. It does force the opponent to have to get Manaphy down, but I still think it's just bad, but that's just somebody coming from someone who's lost to Greninja a couple times because I didn't respect it, but I don't know, man. Roaring Moon with waters, we'll have to see if it's good. I do like the idea of Darkrai, though. I definitely think that Darkrai is kind of worth looking at in the Roaring Moon decks. It doesn't seem like a terrible idea. And we got another Gardy here in top 8. Once again, the Gardy Screamtail. This one obviously playing the Battle VIP, but does have the Screamtail and does have the Counter Catcher and stuff. So, love to see it. And then we got a Rapid Strike deck in top 8. This is a deck that I haven't really seen in a while is Rapid Strike. So Rapid Strike, I think, is definitely kind of fallen off a little bit. I think obviously because like Iron Valiant, a lot of people consider to be the better way to play this deck. But I still think Rapid Strike is good. It still has some good traits. I mean, you have bulkier Pokemon. You have you can control the game a little bit more easily with Rapid Strike due to the amount of bulk you have. The downside is I don't know if this deck's matchup against Roaring Moon is all that good, but I don't know, man. It seems pretty good. And I guess with Gardevoir and Charizard doing good right now, this actually doesn't seem like the worst deck ever because you do have the technical machine at Devolution, obviously, right? So I'll have to see on that. Next tournament, we got the Battle Park tournament here, and the winning deck was Giratina, so it did break the Guardy win streak here in this video. But yeah, Giratina did win it. Yeah, Giratina just it's an online tourney farm apparently. That's what the deck is. And well, Guardy got close. It got second place. Another Guardy Screamtail deck here with the cape. Does play the VIPs, so is a VIP build of Gardevoir playing the Zacian. Also, has a lot of power with the Screamtail and the Zacian and stuff and the Guardies. We have an Arc deck here in top 8. It was Arc Toadscruel. That's interesting. Now, I actually did a video on this deck today on my YouTube channel, except it was in this list. It was a lot different. It was playing like Klefki and Flying Pikachu. But yeah, Arc Toadscruel is definitely interesting. The benefit of Toadscruel is obviously Toadscruel does have that ability where you can prevent Roaring Moon from affecting you, and you have the other Toadscruel, the new one, that prevents Superior Energy Retrieval and even Pokestop from working, though it is bugged on live right now. The point is you shut off Superior Retrieval, so you have an easier matchup in decks like Shempao and Goldengo, and it's a really interesting combination of cards. And this could be the one way to play Arc right now that might be good, because Arc's ultimately going to struggle against these big EX decks. But when you have the Toadscruels, hey man, maybe not, right? That's kind of the thing. We have an Iron Valiant top 4, and it's the Jolteon Iron Valiant deck. This one is getting some attention right now. Jolteon VMAX is a really cool addition to this archetype because you are able to do the Max Thunder Rumble 100-100. You can obviously easily take out Manaphy with Iron Valiant and Yoga Loop. It does have a lot of really cool plays it can make. It does seem like it's a little bit more, I guess, faster and aggressive than the Urshifu build. It does have that Jolteon, which is a free retreater, which is also pretty good, especially when you're obviously playing it with Iron Valiant. I don't know. I like this deck. It's a really cool idea, and we'll have to see if this Jolteon Valiant deck kind of keeps up the success here. We have a Miraidon deck here, also in top 8. This one is using the Iron Hands with the double turbo energy. It's also playing, interestingly, a counter catcher. That's something you don't usually see in Miraidon, but Iron Hands double turbo is a pretty good idea because it's another way to build it up quicker. I mean, you can literally Generator, get 2 energy, attach double turbo, just like that, the Hands is attacking. It would only be doing 100 damage, but a lot of the time, 100 damage is all you need to do with Iron Hands to win a game, right? So that's definitely pretty interesting. Another Guardian top 8 here. And yeah, this one is the Battle VIP-less build of Gardevoir this time around with the Screamtail and the Avery. Playing a Zinnia's Resolve, which is pretty spicy too. But Guardy looks to still be a top deck, man. I mean, we all thought it was dead. Not exactly. There is a Iron Hand Shempao deck here. The first one we've looked at in this video, which is interesting. But Shempao Iron Hands, I think, is a pretty solid deck still. I think a lot of people are still really liking the deck. It still has a lot of really strong plays it can make. Iron Hands is a very deadly card in Shempao. Every time I play against this deck, they always get the turn 2 hands off. So it's very easy to pull it off, apparently. And it's definitely a pretty scary deck to play against for sure when it draws, everything it needs. And we do see another Sableye, Cramorant, Radiant Charizard deck here in the top 8. This one's using a Pidgeot V in the deck and a double turbo, which double turbo can work either with Pidgeot or Charizard, but mainly, obviously, Charizard is good with the double turbo, but it does, of course, work on the Pidgeot too. But yeah, definitely a pretty strong archetype. Like I said, Sableye, Cramorant, and Charizard definitely seems to be the way to go right now. There are some Zorobox decks here outside top 8. I guess we'll look at one of them, the one that was non-top 8, and is this Zorobox deck here. And I'm a fan. I mean, this list actually looks pretty clean. Kind of similar to what I've been rocking. Pretty similar to 60. The Aerodactyl I do like. The Aerodactyl is maybe the most cuttable card in the deck, but Zorobox is definitely a strong archetype right now, in my opinion. And I definitely think people should still consider looking at it, because I think it's actually good. I mean, bro, you have a good matchup into Lost Box because you have Manaphy, Jirachi, and you have the Scizor, which is like your main attacker in that matchup. And then, of course, you have the type coverage. You got the Togetic Turo combo to beat Snorlax. You have good typing with Scovillain and Charizard and Roaring Moon. What's not to like about Zorobox, man? I'm a fan of this deck. I want to see Zorobox continue to do well. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on to the next tournament here. We do have the late night tournament to look at here. And this one had a lot of Snorlax, it looks like. The winning deck was Fusion Mew. Very interesting stuff. I mean, a lot of people might be saying Mew is not in the greatest spot because of Roaring Moon and Charizard, but it's continuing to take down online tourneys nonetheless. And this one does feature the Meloetta once again, because Fusion Mew seems to be like the best way to play it right now. We do see another Lugia Iron Hands deck here in the second place spot with the Iron Hands EX and the Radiant Charizard doing pretty good for the deck. It does play the water. Once again, you kind of have to play the water now in the deck due to the popularity of Snorlax, and that makes sense because we saw a couple Snorlax doing pretty good in this tournament. But yeah, I still think Lugia Iron Hands is underrated, and Lugia, in my opinion, is just an underrated deck right now in general. And, of course, in third place, there was another Snorlax control deck, because Snorlax control is good right now. And, again, not many decks are really built to beat it. They'll tech for it, but they're just not built to beat it as easily, and Snorlax can capitalize on it. And that's the main selling point of playing the Snorlax deck. I guess, like, its Lugia matchup is probably pretty abysmal, to be honest, if they have the Water Energy Lumineon. If they don't prize the Water Energy anyways, the matchup's pretty abysmal. Another Guardy in top 4. This one is Screamtail. It does not play in a Battle VIP either, though. So another Battle VIP-less Guardy deck here doing pretty good in an online tournament. Once again, Guardy is holding on pretty well in the format right now. It's interesting to see Guardy just do so well. We got another Iron Hands Shempao deck. Playing a Drapion, interesting, just to tech from Mew. I mean, it made sense. I mean, Mew did actually win the entire tournament, so look at that. But Shempao Hands still looking to be a pretty strong deck right now. And then, yeah, we got another Guardy here to look at. Another Battle VIP-less Guardy Screamtail deck. Yeah, there you go. Battle VIP is a thing of the past now in Gardevoir. And, yep, there's another Snorlax in top 8. So 2 Snorlax controls in top 8 of the late night tournament. And yeah, like I said, we'll have to see where Snorlax goes. We've been seeing a couple different builds of the deck, though. I will say the past few decks we've looked at have been playing, we saw Crabominable in one of them, Spiritomb in another one, and now this one has Radiant Serena in the deck, too. So we're definitely seeing these Snorlax decks kind of mix up how they're building their list. And then the last deck in top 8 here was a Turbo Lost Box deck. So interesting to see Turbo Lost Box do well, considering a lot of people are saying this deck is dead because of cards like Jirachi and Iron Hands, but Turbo is still proving to be a pretty good deck, as it's still getting some top 8 placements. Outside the top 8, we did have a couple Snorlax stall decks, but yeah, Snorlax did really good in this tournament, which is kind of crazy. Next up is the Kitchen Showdown, and the winning deck was Entei Iron Valiant. Now, this is kind of crazy. This is kind of the deck that people are saying is, like, good and bad at the same time. The way I look at it, anyways, people are saying this deck sucks, but is actually kind of good at the same time. Which might not make any sense, but it is what it is, dude. Iron Valiant is a card that people are still trying to make work right now. We saw the Jolteon build just a little bit earlier. Now we're seeing this Entei build do good. The idea behind this deck is you have some firepower, no pun intended, with the Entei V as a pretty good, like, 2-prize trader, and then you also have the Radiant Charizard, which can be very good in this deck. Charizard is a very strong attacker in our format, and any deck that can kind of utilize it, I think, is just in a great spot right now. And Iron Valiant does obviously do really good into, like, low HP decks, and Iron Valiant Entei actually could be a legit deck. It might not be a meme. It won an online tourney, right? So keep that in mind. We'll have to see if this deck does well at LAIC or not, because it seems to be the best way to play the Valiant deck right now, or the one that's getting the most hype. Second place, there was a Guardy deck here. No Screamtail Guardy, kind of the old school Guardy list before Screamtail. It did play the Counter Catcher and the TM Evolution, but not playing any Screamtail is definitely interesting. There's another Guardy here in top 8. This one is, of course, playing Screamtail, but it also plays VIP. But the only supporters are the Iono, Avery, and Boss. So really capitalizing on the heavy Avery in the deck. There was a Cloth in top 4. You love to see it. I wouldn't call it really a meme deck right now, but Cloth is definitely an interesting archetype in our format. Hitting for weakness against a lot of things, being able to attack on the first turn, all makes Cloth kind of a scary deck to play against sometimes, but I think this deck has a really bad Gardevoir matchup, and that's the thing that I think just hurts this deck in the long run is, yeah, this deck kind of sucks versus Gardevoir, and that's not great. With how good Guardy is, I don't know if it's worth playing fully, but it is still good against, like, Roaring Moon and Miraidon and stuff, and you can see a couple Roaring Moons here in the top 8. Now, crazy enough, there's a Roaring Moon Thornton Iron Hands combo deck. Now, this is kind of bizarre, but I guess it kind of makes sense because you can load up Roaring Moon with Dark Patch and Sada, get Light Energy on, and then throw it into the Iron Hands. It's definitely an interesting way to play Roaring Moon. Is it good? I mean, maybe. There is some, technology here. I mean, Roaring Moon or Iron Hands Roaring Moon could definitely be decent, and especially if you can pull off the Iron Hands in, a matchup where you'll need it, because Roaring Moon could struggle against, Guardian, Lost Box, and Iron Hands out of nowhere can definitely be pretty deadly in those situations and can really, catch opponent off guard and win a game. So maybe it's worth it. And we got another Water Energy Roaring Moon deck here with the Radiant Greninja in the top 8 too. We'll have to see, again, which Roaring Moon variant as well at LAIC. There's another Snorlax deck. Now, this one is also tech teched out a little bit because it's got the Chandelure in the deck. Now, the idea behind Chandelure is when you evolve it, you can discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. So ideally what you do in this scenario is if your opponent has a win con or is trying to win some other way against Snorlax, basically you can just loop Turo with Chandelure every time and just kind of manually power it up by evolving it and then eventually getting to the Chandelure's ability and just milling the top 3 cards, looping Turo over and over again, and pulling off the combo. That's basically the idea behind the Chandelure. And the Chandelure makes sense. It can beat stuff like Minior. It can beat any other win con your opponent might have. You can mill potentially good cards that your opponent needs, like, of course, the Water Energy and the Lumineon or the Minior, whatever tech card the opponent plays to counter Snorlax, you can try to mill it with Chandelure, and it wins you the game quicker. And if your opponent's trying to play to a win con, the Chandelure can punish that. And there was another Fusion Mew deck here in top 8 of this tournament, with Deoxys Meloetta this time. And finally, we have the TOD Regional Championships. Once again, this deck was a very long tournament. I think it lasted like 12 hours or something, and the winning deck was Gardy. Now, this is obviously Celio's Network, who actually won the tournament. He won with his Gardy Battle VIP-less Screamtail deck. This is kind of where we've been seeing the Gardys do well. Gardy is dominating right now. I'm not going to lie to you. Gardy is dominating the online tourneys, and that's all thanks to cards like Screamtail and the Avery Engine and the Luxurious Cape. Screamtail package being really powerful in general, but seeing Gardy do this well is kind of crazy, and the fact that it won like a regional-ish tournament tells me that, yeah, Gardy is still something in the format. It's not just like a best-of-1 cheese-style deck. In second place, we had another very interesting deck. It was a Lost Box Lycanroc deck. So this is a very crazy list. So the idea behind the Lycanroc is Lycanroc Hawlucha knocks out the Jirachi, right? You can Hawlucha the Jirachi for 10, and then you attack with Lycanroc, and then you send to the Lost Zone with the Lost City, and then the opponent has no Jirachi in play, and then you can obviously go off with Sableye. If your opponent has a Manaphy in play and no Jirachi, you can kind of do the same thing by knocking out Manaphy, but that's the idea behind the Lycanroc. You also get fighting Pokemon in the deck, like the Lycanroc and the Tracheon, to help beat Iron Hands and stuff. It's a very creative Lost Box deck. Is it any good? We'll have to see. The Lycanroc is definitely an interesting idea because it is a great way to deal with Jirachi, which Lost Box will struggle against. I mean, you have cards like Counter Catcher and Boss, but overall, Lost Box can struggle against the Jirachi, and that's where the Lycanroc can be very, very good sometimes. It's, you can like just Lycanroc it out of nowhere, and that can make for some pretty crazy stuff to happen. There is another Charizard deck here in top 4. It is the TM Evolution build of the Charizard deck here. Again, a bit of a slower build, playing the Bibarel over the Pidgeot, but still kind of doing its thing with the Charizard being really good. And the TM Evolution also being very helpful in the deck. So we'll have to see again if this Charizard deck is still going to be legit or not in our format. There's another Guardian top 4 here. This one, again, playing Screamtail. It is Battle VIP, playing Battle VIP and also playing Double Avery this time. But, yeah, Guardy, again, just seems to be a top deck right now. We all thought it was dead, but no, it is not. There was a Roaring Moon in top 8. This one, of course, playing the Darkrai's and the Water Energy. Again, Darkrai, I think, is a cool idea, but the Water Energy is definitely... Yeah, I'm not sold in the water build yet, but Darkrai does make sense, and it seems like it could be good. There were a couple Lugias in top 8 here. There was a Colorless Lugia in top 8, so kind of an OG-ish deck. Obviously, Colorless Lugia is something that, was good in the last format, but will it transition in this meta? Well, maybe it is doing good. I mean, it got top 8 in this tournament. Colorless Lugia is still okay. Like I said earlier, I think Lugia is still in a great spot right now. I think it's underappreciated, underrepresented. I think that's kind of the thing right now with Lugia. It's just, it's underappreciated, I feel like. There's another Lugia in top 8, and it was another Colorless Lugia. 2 Colorless Lugia in top 8 is kind of crazy to see. And again, Colorless Lugia, I think, still is like an okay archetype. It still has some strength. It's a lot more, kind of linear with what it does. It's got more energy to burn. The only downside is you're not playing the Vessels and the Iron Hands and Charizard stuff, so you don't have as much, like, pop-off plays, but you do have the Snorlaxes, which can still be good right now in our format. And then in the top 8, again, there was another Entei Iron Valiant deck. So it won a tournament and also got top 8 in like a regional style tournament. So this Entei Iron Valiant deck definitely could be kind of legit after all from what we've seen from the online tournament results. But there you go. That is it for today's video looking at the online tournament results. I think we got hopefully this kind of video gave us like a good grasp as to what could be more meta right now in our format. It's definitely interesting to see Gardevoir dominating right now is pretty insane to see. Gardy is on a very hot run right now, and I think Gardy is looking to be a pretty good play for LAIC. Of course, I will be doing some LAIC content very, very soon, probably just starting tomorrow, so definitely get hyped for that. We did see some cool stuff in the top 8. I mean, we saw this Lycanroc deck. There was obviously a Zoroark V-Star deck we saw. An Arc Pile deck was kind of cool. But yeah, definitely some interesting decks in general, but we are kind of seeing the format generalized now, of course, with Gardevoir doing really, really good. Is Gardevoir the BDIF right now? I don't know. I mean, with the results it's been having in these online tourneys and how it's been winning so many of them and getting so many top 8 placements, there is a debate that Guardy could actually be the BDIF right now. I'm not going to lie. There is a world where you could consider Guardy the BDIF. We'll have to see what my thoughts on all that are very soon, but I hope you all enjoyed the video here on the second channel. Again, if you did, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. I'll leave a link to play.limitless down below if you want to go enter into an online tourney yourself one day and playing it and all that stuff, and I will see you on another video. Bye-bye.